Hello and welcome. My name is Professor Joe Goldblatt, and I am the treasurer of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association in Edinburgh, Scotland. The Edinburgh Interfaith Association has been bringing people together of all faiths and no faiths for over 30 years to help promote understanding, tolerance, peace, and love. This program is part of that effort as we bring together Andrzej Kacoryk and school pupils from Edinburgh, Scotland, Rwanda to learn today about the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum's education programs for young people. This program is part of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association Remembrance Week commemorations. Our guest speaker has been a staff member at the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum since 1997, where he began as a tour guide. In September 2001, he earned a managerial position at the Education Center. While the International Center for Education about Holocaust and Auschwitz came into existence, he became its organization manager, and since March 2010, is the head manager of the Visitor Service section. Currently, he is the ICEAH director. He graduated from the Higher School of Pedagogy in Opole and the Teacher Training College in Białko-Biała. He also completed his postgraduate studies in the field of history and museology at Jagiellon University in Krakow, which many refer to as the Cambridge of Poland. I'm very pleased to welcome the director of the International Center for Education about Auschwitz and the Holocaust, my good friend, Andrzej Kacoryk. Andrzej, over to you.
Good morning. I would like to say that I'm very, very happy to be with you, to be in Poland, to be in Scotland, and to be in Rwanda. This is this positive disadvantage of the time of coronavirus, and I hope that this lesson, this kind of short speech will be valuable for you. Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Site, what it means. Now, this is first of all two parts of former Nazi German death camp, Auschwitz and Birkenau. We cannot forgotten the other smaller sub-camps, almost 40 another camps belonged at that time to Auschwitz. How we understand Auschwitz? Yes, we understand it as a symbol, but also as a symbol of the Holocaust and genocide. But the symbolic of Auschwitz is much more deeper and broader in different parts of the world. You see now the photos of four biggest group of victims. 90% of all victims were Jews from occupied Europe, from different such as Hungary, France, Greece, Norway, and many others. Jews were deported to Auschwitz only, therefore, because they were Jews. There were no other reason of deporting that people to Auschwitz. Auschwitz is also very well known as a symbol of martyrdom of Polish political prisoner. You see here the picture of the photo of the first transport from Poland to Auschwitz. Auschwitz was established in 1940 as a concentration camp. And very meaningful for other groups of victims and other nationalities are the other groups of victims, Soviet prisoners of war and Sinti and Roma, who were also victims of pseudo-medical experiments. Auschwitz is also, as you see, is the place where hundreds of thousands of people were murdered. And now I would like to show you another picture which shows us that Auschwitz is very important for very different group of the visitors and guests. Here I chosen only the picture with the different religions leaders, Christian, Buddhist, and Orthodox and Jews. Auschwitz is now Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial site consists of two parts. One is the Auschwitz the Auschwitz I, the oldest part of the camp and former Polish military barracks until the outbreak of the Second World War. And here you can find the famous gate, the entrance to the camp with the inscription Arbeit macht frei. The second part of the camp is much, much bigger, about 200 hectares. It means more than 400 acres. Birkenau, 300 barracks, four very big crematorium and gas chamber, both concentration and extermination camp. In one day, in 24 hours, in Birkenau, the perpetrators killed more than 5, 6, even 8,000 people a day. And also the biggest in the Third Reich concentration camp, with this 300 wooden and brick barracks, and the historian estimate about 70, 90,000 of inmates. Two functions of the camp I would like to underline, because this is very important to understand the history of the victims, the history of the camp. On one hand, you see the concentration camp and the registered inmates, prisoners, 400,000 numbers, 400,000 slaves who were forced to work for the Third Reich. And on the other hand, extermination camp, 1.1 million of victims of gas chambers. First of all, Jewish people. Next picture, memorial site. Since the end of the Second World War, it was the idea of the Polish political prisoner to keep the remains, to renovate, to keep the barracks, the original places, the hundreds of thousands of items in the form of a memorial. And since the end of the Second World War, the Polish state, Poland, take care over Birkenau and Auschwitz I. They are the mentioned of 300 barracks. Now this is only 150 buildings, but also fence, camp fence, barbed wire, more than 13 kilometers of fences, also very important symbol of the camp. Then other pictures from Birkenau and from Auschwitz. This is also very important for us, and one of the important tasks to keep the original, to keep the authenticity of the Auschwitz word. And the barrack, the fences, but also hundreds of thousands of original items, original shoes, for example, glasses, suitcases, but also human hair. We have in our in the memorial about 2,000 kilograms of human hairs of the victims from the gas chamber. On the one hand, we have our work go in the direction of conservation, which is very important because all material traces are also the witnesses of that time, and very important also in our work in education. But the second part of our work, the second, you can say, function of the memorial site is to educate, to teach the people from all over the world. And here you see our visitors at the gate Arbeit macht frei, and on the platform, rape platform in Birkenau. From very beginning, the education was very important in the Auschwitz Memorial. Never again. It was a slogan which is also very famous in Poland and in the world. Never again. What it means now, we know we have another tragedies, another genocides in different points of the world. And therefore, we try to do something new, something deeper, something broader. Since 1 year, we have a new building for International Center of Education about Auschwitz and the Holocaust. This is so-called the Old Theater Building. It is a big barrack, also a historic building. Not inside, not behind not inside the memorial site, but on the border, at the border between the memorial and the world today. In this way, we call this building as a gate, the entrance gate on one hand to the camp, to the past, to the history, on the other hand to the problems, to the challenges of the world today. We have there many conference rooms, workshops rooms, all is very modern, But since 1 year, this building stay empty because of Corona, because of pandemic. We try to do something else. Of course, I would like to show you the number of visitors at the memorial site since 2001 to 2019. The number was still growing till the 2019, but 2020 only until the middle of the March, we had more than 300,000 visitors, but now there is no visitors more in Auschwitz. We are waiting for the end of the pandemic, but not only we wait. We prepared the guides. We have more than 300 guides. And in year 2019 and 18, we had more official visitors, among other our presidential par and vice president from America. Also, many study visits. We organize workshops, presentations, lectures, prelections. Then we organize one a year an international conference, Auschwitz Never Again, really. Here invited it was in the year 2018, we invited 2019, we invited also survivors from other genocides, from Rwanda, Cambodia, but also from Auschwitz. And what else? International summer academies. 1 week study tours to Auschwitz and to Cracovia, to Poland. Traveling exhibitions, as here in Guernica in Spain. We belong over many online lessons. And also I would like to mention our volunteers, also from all over the world, also from United Kingdom. New publications. And this time of the challenge of Corona is the time also of changing our work and our activity into internet. We produce more and more online exhibitions and new online lessons. Then we are preparing also now an online visiting in Auschwitz, which will be possible next year for schools, for students, for universities, and also from individual visitors. All those forms of the education are possible. All mentioned form of our education is also possible as the online lesson and online workshop, online conferences. Thank you so much for your attention. And at the end, I would like to invite you to the 76th anniversary of the liberation of the camp. This year, we would like to speak, to commemorate, to discuss the fate of children in Auschwitz and in the world. Here is the invitation, paper invitation, but you will find it also in internet, because it will be also the online commemoration day on the 27th of January. It is also a possibility to share broader our commemoration in the world, not for 300 people only, but for hopefully 3 or 30 million of people in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrzej, for that very, very informative and indeed inspiring presentation today. I was struck at the depth, the breadth, and the wide scope of education and research that's being conducted at the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and State Museum. It's really quite striking, the breadth of the work that you're doing with education. So thank you for that presentation. And Andrzej is joined today by school pupils in both Scotland and Rwanda. I'm pleased to welcome from George Watson College in Edinburgh, Scotland, Madison Jennings and Ewan Davies from the George Watson College, and also from Agahozo Shalom in Rwanda. From this school of 500 students, we welcome Ishmael and Ninette. So welcome to both of you today, all of you today. George Watson College was founded in 1741 and officially opened in 1870, and today it educates boys and girls ages nursery to senior grade 6, and it has over 2,300 students in total. Its motto is Ex Corde Caritas, that means love from the heart. Agahozo Shalom School in Rwanda was founded by the late great Jewish philanthropist Anne Heyman. Mrs. Heyman learned during a visit to the Tufts University Jewish Student Center, Hillel, in 2005, about the children who were left without parents following the Rwandan genocide. Inspired to do something to help and by her Jewish beliefs, Heyman set about establishing a youth village for the orphans, which was modeled on the Yemen Ord, the Israeli youth village set up for children who survived the Holocaust in World War II. The word Agahozo comes from the local expression and literally means drying tears. And now I believe the students have some questions directly for Mr. Kacoryk. And Madison, would you like to please go first today?
Sure, thank you for the presentation, it was wonderful. How may pupils who visit Auschwitz use their experience and learning to encourage tolerance and acceptance, promoting human rights in their own communities and across the world?
If I right understood, you asked me about the number of people who took part in our programs connected to the human rights, and so it is. There is a visible difference between visitors, which are led by our guides, our educators. There is it was about 1.8 million people and a year, and people who were able to take part in our deeper programs, which are broadened to the today and the future challenges. And they are about 3,000 people last year. It means last year for me is the 2019, not this year. This is an exceptional year.
And Andrzej, I believe Madison also wanted to know, when those 3,000 people return to their home countries or their communities, what practical things can they learn about promoting human rights, tolerance, and love?
My dream is that all people who are visiting Auschwitz, who touch the original traces of the memory, who find the authenticity, who could say, I was there, I saw there. They should be our ambassadors of tolerance and the human rights. Because also we are asking, we ask the question at the end of each tour in Auschwitz, we asked about the so-called moral ancestry. We should know that that the end of the Second World War, it was in any case the end of the human problems, and we see more. Thank Auschwitz, we see more. We could more understand. We could recognize the steps which could lead to the genocide, to the intolerance, to the breaking of human rights.
Thank you very much. And I believe Nanette has a question from Rwanda.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. I would like to ask you a question. What is your most satisfying part of your work at Auschwitz? When you host a school group, or what do you think, what do you hope we take as a takeaway?
For me, and first of all, my individual point of view. For me, in my work, the most important element of my work is the direct contact, are the discussions, are the meetings with survivors. Definitely. It was my best school in the memorial. The first days in 1997, as I started my work as a guide here, and I saw for my first time in my life, personally, survivors. And I think that this experience of a survivor is, we cannot do something instead. And this is the word which is behind us, because now the former prisoner, the survivors who comes to visit us are in the age of over 90. And we have very few possibility to speak with them. But I think also for many years, for our visitors, also the meetings with survivors were very important. But now I hope, and not only hope, I am sure that what we have in our collection, what we have on the ground of the former camp, this is something unique, and the authenticity of the Auschwitz Memorial is the last one, I think, under other memorial sites. You can, if you are here, you see very clear, you can compare immediately the historic pictures with the camp today. And if you see the individual items, for example, it could be a shoe, it could be a suitcase with a name of the victim, and you know the documents from the archive from where the victim was deported, how big was the family of the victims, who survived. If you discovered the history, I am sure that it is the combination of two. On one hand, the authenticity of the camp. On the other hand, the testimonies of the victims. They are the two important things in our education.
Thank you, Nanette, for that very, very important question. And Ewan, now let's come back to Scotland from George Watson's College. Can you ask your question?
So, thank you for your presentation to start. What must future world leaders do to prevent such horrible events such as the Holocaust and the use of concentration camps like Auschwitz?
Future leader, you means future politician leaders?
Yeah.
Well, Ewan would be a good example. One day, I expect he's going to be a future leader in our world.
Yes, yes. This is, I am not a politician, this is first, but I can quote a Nobel Prize laureate, former survivor of the camp. He told, in context of Auschwitz, he told about them that the leaders of the famous richest countries in the world should one day to organize a meeting in Auschwitz, and afterwards to discuss, to find a right way in their work. I see the words of Elie Wiesel also as a appeal to find the true in the world, because for me not the most important, but very important is that the leaders, the politician leaders, cannot say not the true. They could say us not all the true. They should keep secrets, but nobody, and especially the leaders, cannot say something false. And therefore, Auschwitz is, from this point of view, Auschwitz is a real space of true in the world, of true about us.
So there is your challenge, Madison, Ewan, Ishmael, and Nanette. Once you become leaders, you organize that meeting at Auschwitz, you conduct that discussion, and then you'll be able to reveal the truth. And now our final question comes from Rwanda, and that's from Ishmael.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your good presentation. It was good to hear more from Auschwitz, and we are very happy to know that. So here I have one question. So what lessons can people learn from Auschwitz so that pupils may encourage more respect, tolerance, and inclusion within their schools and communities?
I think the lesson from Auschwitz should be very individual. Auschwitz should find a way to each heart of the visitor, and you can find here, and there I think therefore we have so many visitors from all over the world, not only from the countries which were touched by the Second World War. For example, Spain and Spanish students, they also developed the programs, educational programs of visiting study tours to Auschwitz. And in my opinion, this is not a positive lesson only, because we should be aware that in Auschwitz, one human being was able to kill another one only because of the religion, of the so-called race, and this is, and it means the good man and the bad man is also in me, myself. I am also able to do bad things. And I should remember, but on the other hand, we are able now more understand, more recognized, and you are very young, I am only young, and you could be sure the world is in your hands.
Thank you very much.
This is the lesson from Auschwitz. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ishmael, as you can see, Auschwitz is an opportunity not to find answers necessarily, but to ask even more questions, such as the very, very complex and high-level questions all four students asked today. And Andrzej, thank you for doing such a good job with this panel of addressing their very good questions. Before I hand over to the Executive Director of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, Ian Stewart, I do want to thank the teachers at Agahozo Shalom, Jean-Claude, and Mr. Richard Travers at George Watson College, who's the deputy head teacher at this college, for arranging for the students to participate in this important program today. And I also want, Andrzej, to thank you for building that education center, because indeed it is a gateway center, a gateway to the future, a gateway to proclaim through education and research, never again. And I hope that our visitors to this video program today, our viewers, will visit the Auschwitz-Birkenau website and sign up on or before January 27th, 2021 to participate in your future programs, both online as well as in volunteer capacity in the future. And now I believe Ian is going to lead a discussion with our students in Rwanda and in Scotland, and Andrzej and I get to listen in and see what we might learn from them. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you again, Andrzej. That was very inspiring and a lot for us to really go and think about. Now, after the Holocaust, the world said never again. And unfortunately, since then, the world has forgotten again, and again. With genocides in Cambodia, Bosnia, the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsi, and in Darfur, they've shown that the world has not learned. Today, we've had a window into the terrible suffering endured by the Jewish people and others during the Holocaust. And I thank Andreas for that informative talk. For a Rwandan guests who are here as well. There's the large memorial centre, the Kigali Genocide Memorial Centre, and the talk from Andrzej, it echoes a lot of what you would see in the Rwandan Genocide Memorial Centre, in that some of the things that tend to move you the most is what has that physical connection. So, you know, when you walk through and you see, as Andrzej described, maybe the shoes of children, or one of the things that I always remember was children's homework, children writing down, my dream for when I'm older, you know, I want to be a football player, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this. And when you see the photos that connect to the family, and just as the important work that Andreas is doing, connecting to the families, you know where these children have come from, you can trace how many people have died in the families, and you know, it's very heartbreaking when you hear these personal stories. But I guess the first question is just that. I mean, it's, what do we feel when we hear a presentation like that from Andreas? When you see these images and you just hear the volume of how many people have died, you know, what do we think? What are the feelings that come into us? Madison, we can maybe start with you. I mean, what were you feeling or thinking when you saw that presentation?
I would say there's this sense of regret and disappointment in the lack of progress that we have made as a world. I have spoken to people who have been at Auschwitz and children who were at Auschwitz and survived. And every time it almost brings me to tears, and it's so tragic. And there are so many other similar events that don't have the same voice, and you don't hear those people who've survived, and you don't hear about how horrible it was, and the very small things like what you had to eat there and what jobs you had to get if you wanted to survive. And those are the very small details that make it feel real, because it's such a huge and large scale horrific event that just to hear about the very small things, that's what makes it feel all the more real to a person, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. I wonder if Nanette, Ishmael might want to say something about how did it make you feel when you saw that presentation?
Yeah, thank you. This presentation made me feel so pity, and also a chance for me to learn the importance of Holocaust or other subsequent genocides that happened. And this is very important because it is a big part of the world. It's a history that happened, and made me feel that we as youth or young generation, we are the ones to take the first step to learn and demonstrate demonstrate the dangers of discrimination and dehumanization that happens in the genocide, most about Holocaust, and the one common known as the one happened in Rwanda against the Tutsi. So as youth, I learned that we are the one to distribute and also teach our fellows about unity, love, tolerance, and also take a part in avoiding it to happen again. As you say, never again. Yes, this is how I felt, and I think this is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very well put. And what I'm maybe asking, or we can turn to you. Why do you think museums like the Holocaust Centre or other genocide memorials, why do you think they're important, Madison? Sorry, Ewan. Let's turn to Ewan. Sorry.
I feel like they're important because we, as a collective humanity, we can't afford to forget that we have the capability to turn on each other for very simple differences and cause such horror and death because we don't trust each other. And it's important that we know that we can do this, and we know that we need to work away from this. We know that we need to put in structures that protect those who are different, to protect minorities, and to make sure that we can't do such horrific things to each other again for such a small a reason.
Thank you. And Ismail, why do you think the Kigali Memorial Centre or Auschwitz Education Centre, why are they so important, do you think?
So thank you very much. I think that these memorial seats are very important because they help students, not only students, but all citizens in general, to go there and learn from what happened and learn for the evils that happened once in the history of the world, so that they can know how they can control this, how they can prevent against this to never happen again.
Thank you. So I think a lot of us have been having echoes of similar things today in that the importance of these sites is to learn not to make these mistakes again. And Andrzej made a very important point as well, is that often we can think that a Holocaust or a genocide can't happen here, that it's something that happens in the other side of the world. Well, it's happened all over the world. It's happened in Europe. It's happened in Africa. It can happen anywhere. And I think Andreas makes a really important point that there's something within us that ordinary people like us can get caught up in this, and we really need to learn these dangers. Has anyone ever heard of something called the Alport theory of prejudice? I wonder if has anyone heard of it? Madison, you're nodding. Can you explain what the Alport theory of prejudice is?
I don't remember all of the levels, but it's a theory that prejudice and discrimination grows from, I believe, 4 levels and progresses to the point of genocide and the attempt to exterminate another group, which is obviously a very horrific and serious thing, but it can start of very simple things such as allocution, using words to discriminate against other people and to be rude to other people. And unfortunately, it's something that we see a lot all the time in places, you know, that you would say, hey, there can't be genocide here. But as that progresses to discrimination and you start, you know, having violence against these groups, it's very easy to make that leap, easier than we might think. And on a personal level, an individual level, each person can help stop that first level, allocution, and, you know, call people out on saying things that they shouldn't be saying and talking in the ways that they shouldn't be talking, to prevent it from progressing so seriously to discrimination against whole groups that leads to such huge and horrific events.
Thank you, Madison. I don't know, Nanette, Ismail, are you? I don't know if Nanette is there. It's difficult to see both of you. Ismail, are you there, maybe?
Yes, we are.
Oh, you are here, Nanette. I don't know if you were listening to Madison. The one similar thing, unfortunately, that happens with a genocide, and a very similar thing that happened in Rwanda and with the Holocaust, and if we apply the Alport theory, it started with the name calling. It started very similarly in Rwanda on the radios. There was the whole thing of cockroach, dehumanizing the other. And that's one of the things that happened also during the Holocaust, that dehumanizing of another group, the name calling, and then the name calling leads to the discrimination, and, you know, this horrible racism, and then that goes into a genocide. And that's what we are, you know, what are the lessons that we can learn? That's the key thing we need to take away from today. And Madison made a very good point about we need to be aware to that first level so we prevent the second. So we need to be aware of the name calling, and then so what do we do to actually stop genocides happening? The question I guess I'm asking is, what can we do to prevent another genocide happening again? I mean, I think Madison made a really good point there about when we think about the Alport theory, when we see people being called names or signaled out that we have to do something to challenge it, what do you think? What do you think we can do? What lessons can we learn? What can we do to try and prevent another genocide happening again? Tough question.
Yes, thank you. No, a very good question. But I think the reason why we kept on seeing genocide happening after the Holocaust that happened before other genocide, like genocide in Rwanda happened in 1994, when the genocide of Holocaust happened during the Second World War. I think the reason why it kept repeating itself is because people didn't learn or keep the information or teach the young generation how genocide is prepared, or the stage that genocide take. And I think what we can do for fighting against genocide, we can raise out our experience, share with the world what we saw, what happened as things we lived in or happened on our ancestors. So I think we shouldn't be shy or guilty of what happened. Instead, we should share what happened, and also for others to learn from that, and also know the symptoms, how genocide starts. It doesn't come, and they don't wake up in the morning and start genocide as the action. There is the first stages that genocide passed through, which is dehumanization, dividing people into groups, all that. As young generation or everyone around the world, if one sees that, we should stand up and start fighting against that, because we saw the results of it. It starts small but ends big, and a lot of people are lost. It's not even about loss of lives, also the economy of the country, everything is destroyed. Actually, it's evil. So we should start from those small symptoms that are shown to fight against genocide instead. Thank you.
Oh, that was so very well put, thank you. One of the final things I want to say is the theme of Holocaust Memorial Day next year is Be the Light in the Darkness. So I want to just relate to what Nanette was saying. What can we do to be a light in the darkness? And I think Nanette was very well phrasing that there, that we should be fighting against genocide ideology. But I wonder if you, and maybe you could come in, what could you do if you were to say to be a light in the darkness? What would you think we could do?
Well, it's important that no matter where you are in the social ladder, no matter what you do, you still speak up when we start seeing discrimination and dehumanization. Because you could be a world leader, you could be head of the UN, and if you speak up, yes, your voice is heard, people hear it. But we also see with the protests around the world, small people, individuals who speak up can still change the system. They can still prevent things happening. And it's important that everyone knows they have the right to speak up, and everyone should speak up.
Thank you so much, Ewan. Ismail, what do you think? What you need to unmute? Okay, yep.
Yes, what I think about is that it is our role as a youth to be the light in the darkness. And by doing this, we must not tolerate any kind of segregation, I mean discrimination. So if we see any segregation or discrimination being done in our societies or our communities, we must really fight against it. So as they said before, they say that we shouldn't be shy from preventing that. So we must raise our voices and stop that and prevent that, so that it cannot never happen again, as we've seen Holocaust, and we've seen genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, we've seen in Cambodia, and so on and so on. So it is our Lord to go and fight for that from the bottom of our heart. And we hope that we've working together, because we've working together, we and our fellows, we and our young ones, we and our parents, our guardians, we shall let stop this to happen again in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any final things that they want to say? Anything that you've taken away from today, for example? Let's Joe come in, and could you unmute yourself, please, Joe?
Yes, I would like to ask our friends in Rwanda a question.
Yes.
Your school was founded by a Jewish woman. How do you feel, having listened to Andrzej today describe the torment, the tragedy of the Jews in Auschwitz? How do you feel that connects with your experience as Rwandans with the 1984 genocide? Do you feel a closer connection with Jewish people because of the history of your school, having heard this discussion today with Mr. Kacoryk?
Good question.
How do you feel about that, Nanette?
Yes, thank you. My feelings towards me being in EIFA in a school that's founded with by Miss Anne Heyman, who's from Israel. I feel so united. I feel international. I feel loved as Rwandan, not only Rwandan, but also as people that we share the same history. I really feel, I feel what she feels, maybe helping genocide survivors and other orphans from Rwanda. I feel I have support anywhere I can raise my voice, they can hear me. Yes, thank you.
And how about you, Ishmael?
Yes, according to me also, first of all, I feel very happy to be in this school, because for me to know that this school was founded by the Jewish person, it is first a great pleasure for me to be in this school, which was founded by her. And all what I can say is that it is a lesson for us as the youth, as the orphans of Rwanda, and as when she was still alive, she always say that we must also do we must be the hope for the future. We must have the hope for the future, because even though all that happened, even though genocide of Rwanda happened, but we must have that hope, and we must go out and be the light, not be shy, not be dark in dark, but we must go there and be the light in the darkness, so that we can stop everything bad or everything evil like that to happen again. And in addition to this, is that I also feel like sympathetic to what happened to the Jewish people, and for me, it was like, maybe I can say that it was because of the bad governance of the German, especially the dictatorship of the Hitler. But also we need to learn. I through that I also need to learn that even if I'm not sure that I'm going to become a leader, and if I become a leader, I cannot work like what Hitler did in the German, or what Hitler did for the Israelites. Yes, that's all what I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Well, I think first of all, we have to thank Andreas again for inspiring us and really inspired us into this great discussion that we've just had. We've learned so much today, and I'm also leaving with a lot of hope that you and Madison and Nanette and Ishmael have given us, that for hopefully the future of our worlds is in better hands, hopefully, and the leaders that we have to come will be inspired to do good for humankind, will be alert to the dangers of genocide and hate, and will do what they can to prevent it. So I want to thank Andres, and I want to thank Madison, Ewan, Nanette, and Ishmael from joining us today in what has been a very international morning, where I think we've all got a lot of things that we can go away and learn from. So thank you all.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
this very inspiring meeting, very inspiring questions. And I am very happy that I had the opportunity to be with you in Scotland, with you in Rwanda, and and I hope we will see here in the memorial and in the International Center in Oświęcim, Poland. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.